Okay, am I drawing and painting two friends? Now that I know what I want my final grid size to be, I'm gonna put aside my photograph for a minute. Now I'm gonna pick up my piece of paper from my sketchbook. You can work in your sketchbook, you can take it out of your sketchbook, up to you. I just wanna make sure I have the same exact size piece of paper that you did. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take the ruler that you've been provided, okay? And the first thing I want you to learn about rulers is that rulers don't always start at the end, all right? If you already know this, awesome. If you don't, you gotta learn something new today. You always wanna start on that one line in. That is where the inch actually begins, okay? So I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna line it up to my piece of paper on my edge. Now, because I multiplied by 2, I'm gonna make a grid, I'm gonna make a line every 2 inches, all right? Whatever you multiply by, then that needs to be the size of your grid, all right? So I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4 squares, and I'm gonna have a little bit over on the edge, which is fine. Now, because what makes a line? 2 points, right? So I'm gonna make sure that I start marking from left to right, like I'm reading a book. So I'm gonna come down here at the end of the page. I'm gonna make sure I don't line it up at the edge of my ruler, but line it up with that line. And I'm gonna make sure that I multiply, I go 2, 4, 6, 8, all right? Then I'm gonna take my line, I'm gonna take my point here and my point there. I'm gonna line it up. You always want, whenever you're using a ruler, you always wanna hold it down. So whether you're lefty or righty, take your non-dominant hand, all right? And you hold down the ruler, you line up the lines as best you can, and you draw a line, okay? If you wanna be really fancy, the way that people that draft by hand, they hold the pencil straight up and down and then they rotate the pencil as they go. So if you want to be like super fancy drafter, you can do that. I used to do theater, so when I used to draft, I used to have to hold my pencil that way. So when I grid, I sometimes, whenever I use a ruler, I kind of do that with my pencil. It's part of my training. So you can also just hold your pencil, draw a line, hold your pencil. Make sure you get those 2 points and that the line's straight. If the line is crooked, stop. Remeasure, because crooked lines means that you've measured something wrong. Because in theory, your piece of paper is a rectangle, and you're using the fact that it's a rectangle and perfectly rectangular to help you out. Now, I've done my top and my bottom. Now I'm gonna line it up again. And because I'm multiplying by 2, I go every 2 inches, okay? If you're just doing the 1 inch grid, like you didn't multiply by anything, then you stay with the number, then you stay with 1. Like you're just doing a direct, you're not enlarging it at all, you're keeping it the same exact size as you had in your photo, just use a 1 inch square grid. If you are doing something, you're playing with the composition, which I highly recommend, all right, you then use whatever you multiply by. So if I had multiplied by 1.5 inches, I would do a grid that's 1.5 inches, all right? So now I'm gonna go like this, and I made my 2 lines, right? So my 2 lines, I'm lining them up. Also, I'm using just like a regular pencil for this. I would not use I would use a regular pencil or like a 2B. You can use a 2H2 because it's lighter. I just always worry about, just do it lightly, right? So we're almost done with gridding. So probably some of you didn't, there's one last thing I have to show you as I add this last grid. Notice I'm taking some time before I draw the line and make sure that the lines are really, I'm not trying to speed through it. All right, so now I have this bit over here. Do you see this bit over here? So I have this bit over here and that might confuse me. So I could cut it, right? Or I can also go squibbly, 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 and make sure that I don't pay attention to what's over there. Okay.